The National Electoral Commission is organizing a three-day national validation conference on the theme Accelerating the National Electoral Legal Reforms Agenda for Enhanced Public Credibility and Continued Democratic Consolidation during the 2019 to 2023 electoral cycle. Now, after the 2018 elections, the UNDP Electoral Project organized a conference to discuss the different election observation mission recommendations with the aim to consolidate the recommendations and identify priorities for reform, including reforms to the electoral legal framework. A national task force was set up under the aegis of the National Electoral Commission. 6 areas have been identified for the national conference: strengthening the independence and performance of election management bodies, building a more fair and equitable electoral rules and framework, improving the electoral campaign conditions and environment, creating a more equitable and inclusive electoral process, moving towards a more robust system of electoral dispute resolution, and strengthening media's role and operating environment in elections. There was research, debate, and discussion prior to the next scheduled local and national elections in 2022 and 2023, respectively. However, there was added urgency to tackling those issues which could necessitate amendment to the electoral legal framework, including potentially the Constitution, Public Elections Act, Political Parties Act, and other relevant legislation related to key actors in the elections like NEC and Political Parties Registration Commission, PPRC, and other institutions that contribute to the overall election process, such as the media, police, Civil Registration Authority, and the judiciary. Tonight, we probe into the proposed national conference. My name is Samuel Wise-Bangura, and this is AYV on Sunday. Good evening and a warm welcome to AYV on Sunday on channel 33 on TV and on Radio FM 101.7. On my panel this evening, I have with me Philip Kabo, who is the Director of Media and Communications at NEC. Philip, good evening and welcome.
Good evening and good evening, listeners.
The Director of External Relations at NEC, Albert Masako, is with me. Albert, good evening.
Thank you for having me. Good evening all.
All right. The outreach and spokesperson for the Political Parties Registration Commission, Lucien Momo. Lucien, good evening.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, listeners and viewers.
All right. We're with the arrival of the National Coordinator for the National Elections Watch, Reverend James Lahai, to join us in the conversation. And so you watching or listening, remember you can always participate in the discussion through our Facebook page. You can find us at Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page, and you can phone in when we open the call line later. And we'll announce the number later. And but for now, let's go into the conversation. I'm going to start off with you, Albert. Apparently, giving us the necessity of having this three-day conference, looking at the things that have been done, the processes involved until perhaps the final day, which should be on the 12th. Yeah, the 12th. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, you've already stated the theme. Basically, for this conference is accelerating national electoral legal reforms. We are talking about the Electoral Commission and also the Political Parties Registration Commission.
Right.
As we move forward, there is this need, and all of what we are discussing stemmed from the views from EOMs, Elections Observation Missions. We have our national outfits, that is the National Election Watch. We also have other institutions like the European Union, the ECOWAS, the Carter Center, the Commonwealth, all of these observer missions. They made some recommendations. In total, we are talking about 111 of these recommendations, and of these 111, 103 were accepted by national stakeholders. I mean, the EMBs, that is the Electoral Commission and PPIC, the political parties. So, and they were put into various thematic areas. Of these 6 thematic areas, there is one thematic cluster, which is electoral legal reform. And we want to push the conversation, the dialogue moving forward. Because at the end of the day, if we are to see any meaningful move into 2023, the electoral cycle, some of these recommendations that need reform should be on the table for us to discuss them. So as a result of that, with support from UNDP and the European Union, NEC has taken the lead to organize a 3-day conference. It is going to start on Tuesday, that is from the 10th to the 12th, the 10th, the 11th, and 12th. And this conference, the methodology is that we've also subdivided these legal, these recommendations that warrant review, possible review of our laws, electoral and political laws governing elections generally. And per day, we'll be having 2 sessions. And we have 6 sessions and we have 6 clusters. And we've also subdivided them. For example, we have the first day session wherein we are going to look at strengthening the independence and performance of election management bodies.
Before going to the conference, let me take you back. You said the stakeholders, the election management bodies, accepted 103 recommendations from all the recommendations that were made. Now, what was the process like in accepting and denying or rejecting some of the recommendations? Who were involved? Were the political parties part of the process and all of that?
Yes, in 2018, after the 2018 presidential and general elections at the Bintumani International Conference Center, all of the electoral stakeholders, including the Electoral Commission, the PPIC, all the political parties, civil society, development partners, we all went there and looked at these recommendations one after the other. And based upon that, we looked at them, and at the end of the day, stakeholders had to accept 103. 7 were rejected for whatever reasons. The conference did not think that some of these recommendations actually are attainable. Then 1 was actually undecided. The one that was undecided had to do with the issue of vehicular movement on election day. We did not accept, neither we
did not reject.
Yes, that was the situation. So of the 103, they were also subdivided into 6 thematic areas.
Right.
And one of those 6 clusters is what we are going to push forward, because the recommendations of the 103, some had to do with administrative issues, some systems and processes, but the key ones, that is those that have to actually deal with electoral legal reforms, are what we are pushing now. Because at the end of the day, for administrative processes, systems, and reviews, the Electoral Commission can do ours, we can do ours, PPIC
so
also
the different institutions can actually handle theirs.
But for these ones, even if we have interest in them, it has to go through the AG's office, it has to go through Parliament, and even before going there, that is the need for us to have a national conversation. So the essence of this conference, 3-day conference, is for us to thoroughly, all electoral stakeholders, including the political parties, to look at these issues, very critical issues, to debate. At the end of the day, when it becomes a bill, then parliaments would ascertain that indeed the EMBs, the electoral management bodies, have been able to engender some conversation around these recommendations. So
throughout the process, the process is leading to this 3-day conference. The political parties have been heavily involved, because at the end of the day, these are the things we get from them, that we've not been involved. We feel like there's always this suspicion when it comes to election management bodies and political parties, especially NEC.
Yes, the planning has been ongoing for the better part of 2 months.
Right.
And we've held a series of engagements with the leadership of Parliament, MPs, some MPs, also with political parties, the leadership of political parties, democratic institutions, civil society, development partners. But all of these engagements have been planning. Now we've put all of these plans together. Come Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week, we are going to, this week, we are going to look at these discussions now, so that at the end of the general public, Sierra Leoneans would understand some of these behind-the-scenes planning that has been
okay, before we go to the form the conference is going to take, let me look at the two institutions that are very critical in all of this, the PPRC and the NEC. Let me, Philip, some of the recommendations Albert is, mentioned, they have to do with administrative and institutional arrangements and all of that. Specifically, if you are to speak to some of those administrative recommendations that deal with the processes and all of that, what have been done? What are the things that have been done by the Commission to ensure that out of the 103 recommendations that have been accepted, you're able to meet those institutional arrangements?
Well, as Albert rightly stated, out of the 103, it was divided into 6 thematic groups. Some relate to administrative systems and processes. For example, at NEC, from the recommendations, we realized that they were making recommendations that our parking system were too cumbersome and therefore they need to be reviewed. Our forms, the results, reconciliation forms,
system, what does that mean?
how we pack our materials, especially after pooling. After voting. You have to pack certain set of materials in a specific T. We have to pack the result. We have to pack the ink, the indelible ink, the other remaining materials, whether they are going to be reused or not. Those procedures, to them, were too cumbersome and they will lead to delay. And therefore, they were asking us to review some of those packing procedures. Secondly, they realized that the forms that we use, for example, our reconciliation result forms, the RRS form, they said the areas to be filled are too many and therefore they need to be reviewed so that it could be easily filled after the pools and they can
party agents,
by our own staff, our own staff that will be conducting the elections at the polling station level. So those are all systems we have actually reviewed and we have started implementing them in most of the by-elections we have actually conducted. So in that particular direction, we have been able to address almost 90% as I speak now, relating to systems and processes and reviews of some of our forms as I speak. But on the area of the legal aspect, there are some areas that will require a review of our laws.
What are some of those areas?
And some of those areas will take, like, for example, the first area, strengthening the independence and performance of election management bodies. How, one, they want to see how laws could be made or reviewed that will strengthen the independence of NEC, PPRC, in the discharge of their functions. They also want to see how we can have a fixed date for elections, because the issue surrounding the uncertainty of the date of election has become a very critical factor in the political discourse of our country. You could recall in 2018, or you look at the Constitution, it's clearly stated, in as much as the Chief Electoral Commissioner and Chairperson needs to confer with the President before they have a date, certain times it could lead to delay. So we realized that for 2018, we had a protracted discussion before we were able to actually get the actual date for elections. And mind you, there is a law which provides that people have to resign 1 year before the conduct of elections. So if you are not certain that the election is going to be conducted on this day, when are you expected to resign? So automatically, there are some who may have interest, but because of the law, they may be entrapped and therefore they could not participate in that particular elections. Those are areas that actually needs to be reviewed. And we also want to ensure that government provides timely funding. Timely funding. In the previous cycle, we experienced that funds were provided in piecemeal, but not in a timely manner. And therefore, certain times, it actually affects or derail the operations of the Commission. And generally, people don't even want to know whether NEC received funds earlier or late. What they want to know or what they want to see is on polling day, all what is expected from NEC is being done. How we come about to go, or how we go about it to ensure that we conduct elections on that day, it's none of their business.
Let me quickly ask you before, I know the issue of funds can always be a challenge, but You spoke about the 1 year time frame for, public officers to resign if they want to contest for any elective position. But, are you going to also look at a clear definition as to who is a public officer within this, review process? Because that, again, has been, very ambiguous. Many people giving a different interpretation as to who falls within that particular bracket of a public officer.
Definitely, that is going to be clarified, and that is why, if you look at the selection of the panelists, you realize that they have a lot of responsibilities to do their research, not only as it obtains in Sierra Leone, but how it also operates in other countries, so that we have some common understanding, so that we know who are public officers, we know whether the 1 year time frame is too long, how we can actually abridge it to an accommodating period that will allow people to work and later on participate in the elections, rather than waiting for 1 year, especially when there is still this uncertainty on the date for the elections. And I want to believe we should have a particular date for elections. It's up to, you go to Liberia, it is there. You go to US, it is there. And I want to believe it is the desire, based on the recommendations we have got, that during this particular conference, we'll get clarity on this, and that will inform NEC what to take forward to Parliament. All
right, let me quickly welcome Reverend James Lahai, the National Coordinator for National Elections Watch. Good evening and welcome, Reverend. Lucien, let me have your take. The take has always been that PPRC lacks the power to regulate the affairs and activities of political parties. So some even argue that even by its name, the Political Parties Registration Commission, you're only limited to just registering political parties. And when it comes to regulating the affairs and conduct of political parties, PPRC is very weak with regards to legal provisions to help you and do some enforcement. So where do you come in all of these legal reforms?
As you said earlier, the PPRC, as it is, people think the PPRC's role is to just register political parties. And we go into the mandate of the Commission, it's more than registering political parties.
Okay.
That is why in 2011, when the Commission reviewed its act, and then the bill was sent to Parliament to change the name from the Political Parties Registration Commission to the Political Parties Registration and Regulating Commission.
That was when?
In 2011. That bill never saw the light of the day.
What was responsible?
Because some of the provisions in the current act, somehow restricts the Commission from doing certain things.
Things like?
If the Commission is empowered to register political parties, presently the Commission does not have the power to deregister political parties unless you apply to the Supreme Court, as was done in 2011, where the Commission deregistered 24 political parties out of 32 that we had then. So now, what we're doing as part of the discussion today.
So does that not also speak to the fact that when it comes to actually the issue of having penalties or penal system for political parties, the current act does not support the Commission?
Now there is this thing that I'm saying. The Commission has the power to register political parties.
Yes.
And has the power to refuse your registration.
Correct.
Even the power to refuse registration has to be contested in the Supreme Court by political parties. What we were saying as a commission is that we want the power to register, deregister without going to, because of us going to apply to the Supreme Court. So now, what we are moving to now is that
you're calling for the power of the High Court.
We want a quasi-judicial power. Even though the Commission has the power of the High Court, but we need the power to, instead of the Commission going to the Supreme Court to deregister political party, we need if a political party or someone is not happy with what we're doing, you go to the Supreme Court and apply for that. But there is this discussion going on. That is why the need for this conference.
What discussion?
Yes. Now, there's a school of thought saying now to change the name. And it is the view of the commission that if the name remains as Political Parties Registration Commission, many people will misunderstand the role of PPRC. Many people will say you are only there to register political parties. But if the issue of regulation coming in, that would be a different ball game. And now, from what you were saying about the issues of regulating political parties, we have the Political Parties Code of Conduct. That was what was injected into the 2011 bill. And now we are also on reform as the NEC is on reform. And those are some of the things that is to be injected.
Is the code of conduct binding? I mean, legally binding? Because, again, that is something political parties will want to be smart about.
That's the issue. Now, in the 2011 bill, and in the review that we are on now, the code of conduct has been injected into the bill.
To be part of the new
part
act,
of the bill
right,
which will be enacted as an act. So, political parties or people will not say this is a gentleman's agreement, because those codes of conduct we are not sent to Parliament for ratification. So if it is in the law that A, B, C, and D should be done, we had few issues in the 2018 elections. One will do with the CDP in Allow Trust and the
I was just going to say, in 2018, there were a series of directives from the PPRC, but almost all of those directives were challenged. Some were ignored by the parties.
Yes, they were ignored because the code of conduct binding them were not legal. And then when we go to the police to effect, the police ask to go for a court
order.
A court order.
Yeah.
So if these rules or these codes are embedded in the law, it's simple for us. Simple directives to police, or simple directives, we can move and bring down those banners and act on some of those issues. But let me tell you, there are several challenges.
What are those challenges
that we have as a commission?
What are those challenges?
One, we have a challenge with the people, we have a challenge with the political parties, and we have a challenge with the media. One. Now, the political parties, whenever there is a breach in the law, you see them come out with press releases, dissociating themselves from those issues.
Right.
Mind you, you have members of political parties, you have supporters that are not members, card-carrying members of political parties, who mainly are involved in some of these issues. That is why we always ask the police or law enforcement agencies to take action. Some of these people perpetrating some of these violence or what have you in politics, they are not card-carrying members of political parties. And when the political parties say we dissociate ourselves from this, you cannot go against them. So that is why we ask the security agencies to take action.
Against the individuals.
And if those individuals are convicted and it is proven that they are members of this political party, then PPRC can come in. But our hands are tied. The APC, the SLPP, the NGC, their membership cannot bring them to power. Their membership. You look at their delegates in their delegate conference, you cannot count up to 10,000 people. So the supporters, you cannot hold them responsible. So that is our problem. That is our problem. Again,
where does the media come in as a challenge? Yes.
And again, they will say, Mr. A wore our colors,
Yeah.
and they are not members of our party. How can you get rid of those people? So that is why the security agency comes in. Now the media comes in with a lack of understanding the rules of the PPRC or NEC. Now, another issue is campaigning, monitoring campaigns. Now the National Electoral Commission, through the PPLC, which the PPRC is also a member of, draws up the calendar. How do we monitor the campaigns? That's another issue. All of this discussion, these 3 days, will deal with all of those issues. That when we say party A, B, C, or D campaigns on Monday, these are the rules. And it will not only be rules, but will also ensure that they are in the law. We have political parties selling their days to other political parties. How do we regulate that? So we'll discuss all that during these 3 days. Parties selling days to other parties. Mainly the two
giants.
The two old parties. You know, so these 3 days we are going to discuss all of these issues. If you are to campaign on the A, campaign on the A. Don't buy these. So that will make it very easy for PPRC and also NEC. People are misunderstanding the roles of PPRC and the roles of NEC.
So how much of sensitization or educational programs you've had, for example, as the PPRC, even with regards to journalists, the media, for example, who are very integral in getting the information out? How much of educational programs have you had for the media and helping
that is
the
why,
public?
Since 2010, when I've been in PPRC, we've been inviting the media into every programs that we have.
To cover and report and not training them.
It will amaze you, I will not mention. It will amaze you for someone that has been invited to PPRC programs for years, asking some questions about some things that individual should have been offended with. So what I think we will do going forward is to get certain programs for the media.
Training programs to understand electoral laws and how to even report elections. That is very critical. All right.
Mind you, I was a journalist, and I know journalists depends on research.
All right. Stay with us, Lucy, and let me bring in Reverend. Reverend, I mean, the need to actually have a conversation, a national conference around legal reforms, the legal frameworks, I mean, of the laws or legislations governing elections and all of that. And recommendations have been accepted. There is a need now to implement those recommendations, and critically want us to do with reforming our legal provisions. And new is very integral in elections in Sierra Leone. Where do you see this conference taking, say, for example, the 2023 elections to, in terms of creating, an environment where almost all the challenges that were highlighted by those, including new, who observed the 2018 elections are being adhered, and mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that those challenges are surmounted?
I consider the conference as an opportunity. But I would not want us to be ambitious and think that conference is going to solve all challenges or problems facing our electoral system.
Right.
We have about 103 recommendations from various election observer missions that observed the 2018 elections. I think one bright thing this conference should focus on is to ensure that those recommendations are categorized into short-term, what can be attained in the short term, like for the 2022 2023 elections, what can be in the midterm, and what we'll continue to work on, and possibly be part of the overall constitutional review of the country. So that's why the discussion is good, and I consider it as an opportunity, especially bringing together the various actors and players to sit together and look at these issues. You see, as a country, we are in a critical situation whereby honesty is no longer with us when it comes to politics. Sincerity has eluded us. That's why it is good to bring everybody together. And I hope that conference is going to be covered fully, so that tomorrow, when people would want to dissociate themselves from decisions, we can go back to those documentaries to find out whether they dissociated themselves from those decisions at the conference or not, or if they are crying foul because those decisions are now against their own interest.
Reverend, can I just quickly take you back? What were some of the critical challenges that, as a nation, we were confronted with in 2018 during the elections that you think they need to be categorized, in short, medium, and long term?
In the first place, the issue of the date for the election was a big issue.
Right.
By the Constitution, the chair of the Electoral Commission should consult with the presidency and then proclaim the date of the election. There is a period from the time of the swearing in, which is a 3 months window period, from within any time could be chosen. From the consultation.
Right.
From the consultation.
Okay.
And for the parliamentary elections and local councils, the president will have to consult the chair of the commission to do the proclamation of those dates.
Right.
That is putting somebody who might be also contesting that election to a big advantage over other aspirants. Because setting the date is within his own ambit, and it is outside the ambit of people who is going to contest it. And that affected several people for the 2018 elections. You saw that people won elections, they were in parliament, they were petitioned on the grounds that they were still receiving money from the consolidated fund within the 1 year.
As public officers.
Exactly, within the 1 year period that they were to have resigned. Yeah. And those people lost their seats. But if everybody knows that 5 years after every election, second Tuesday in February or in March is election day.
That is critical, but again, that is something that should be enshrined in the Constitution. And the process of reviewing the Constitution is one that is not in sight. Efforts have been made, reports have been made, but we've seen from both governments, the previous governments, the current government, white paper is yet to be out for people to see and all of that, and you have to think about referendum and all of that. So how does that work?
Yes, that's why it's waiting for the review itself. The act, the electoral regulations should capture that particular component. It may finally find its way into the Constitution, and I will advocate for it to be entrenched, so that nobody will come and then just kick it away. This one is very, very urgent because it's throwing some confusion around our electoral process.
Capturing it in a bill that perhaps will be prepared anytime soon, taken to, gazetted, then taken to Parliament, enacted into a law have, say, you have the last month or give a specific date for every 5 years, and then the Constitution will be telling you otherwise. Where do we draw the line? This is crucial for the electoral, bodies.
I am not a legal person, but I am made to understand that when acts are formed, those constitutional provisions that may be in conflict with the provisions.
The Constitution takes precedence.
That's cause for referendum.
The Constitution takes precedence.
I agree, but that's why before the acts come into being, those specific areas must be repealed by the Parliament itself.
I'm tempted to ask, just a second, I'm tempted to ask Philip this question. I mean, we've seen a lot, many laws have been enacted by Parliament. Some of the provisions contradict the Constitution, and the legal interpretation has always been, come on now, the Act is just a creature of the Constitution. So the Constitution, supersedes every other law.
Yeah, we are aware of that, that the Constitution is the ground norm and supersedes all other acts. And when there is a conflict between the Constitution and the Act, the Constitution takes supremacy because of the manner in which it is formed and the provisions within the Constitution. But what is important for this particular conference is that we'll be able to determine those areas that could easily be amended, both in the Constitution and reflected in the various acts. Mind you, we are not only dealing with NEC and PPRC. You have the Media Commission. They have the IMC. There are some laws that needs to be reviewed within the IMC. You have the Ministry of Finance. If we are talking about establishing a national trust fund, then automatically the Financial Act needs to be amended to reflect that particular aspect. So it is not only dealing with NEC per se. And that is why, if you look at the composition of this particular conference, we draw participants from various critical institutions that we think will aid the process. Because the fact remains that if all players are not on deck, automatically it will be difficult for us to sail through. Okay, and because we want to sail through, that is why we've involved the government, we've involved Parliament, political parties, civil societies. They are all part of this particular process.
And that takes me to bringing in Albert. The form. Yes, go ahead, quickly. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
I'll come back to you.
You were asking about those things that you think are immediate concerns.
Yes. Yes, please.
There's also this issue of in allocating constituencies and wards, the boundary delimitation. In that formula, you have a 25% plus or minus variance. We believe that percentage is too high because when you come to representation, it is about the population. And so if you create a 25% plus or minus, you are creating a situation whereby somebody is coming to represent far lower number of people, whilst another person requires a high number of people in terms of representation. Let me give you an example.
Please. Yes.
Like in Falaba district, somebody won with a population that is far below somebody who lost in another constituency. So there is some kind of disparity. That percentage must be lowered to reflect equality in terms of representation as per population.
Who determines that?
That's in the next regulations.
Right.
PEA, Public Elections Act.
Okay.
That's where you have this formula about boundary delimitation and bringing in this factor of the 25% plus or minus periods. The legal man will throw more.
Yeah, do you want to make clarification to that?
Yes, I think that's very, very clear. It's plus of 25% deviation range, because it is not only the population that is taken
Into consideration. What else do you take?
But we quite agree from the recommendation that the deviation range is too far.
It's too wide.
And that is why, during this particular conference, all of this will be discussed.
Right.
And from the key stakeholders, they will recommend. And based on the recommendations, that is what will be factored into our bill that will be sent to Parliament. And that will be the bill we take to the general populace to tell them that this was what we agreed upon in the conference, and this is what we have reflected, so that they look at it, they are satisfied with it before we actually take it forward. It's a very salient point, and I think it's something that we have factored in the agenda for this particular conference.
Okay.
And by the time
there are things I want to bring in. Yes.
Another critical and urgent concern is determining the number of ordinary members of parliament for the subsequent parliament.
Ordinary members of parliament.
In parliament, you have those we call ordinary members of parliament. These are the ones that are elected via constituencies. But then you also have paramount chief members.
They are also elected.
I agree, not by the universal adult suffrage. For them, it's an electoral college. I am talking about constituency representation. The rule for now is NEC writes to Parliament for Parliament to determine what will be the number of ordinary members of Parliament. There's no formula, there's no rule.
So Parliament increases its own seats as it's...
Just like it happened for the 2018 election. From 112 ordinary members of Parliament, 20 was just added.
232.
And you don't know what was the rationale. For the 20.
Yes, you can come in. Go ahead.
Let's make this correction.
Go ahead.
Reverend is saying they were not just added. So what we were saying in this respect, that is why they did for this conference.
Go ahead.
There are laws guiding some of these processes. So what we think we are going to discuss on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is to how we are going to harmonize these laws to be binding. Because now,
this doesn't fall in your purview.
No, wait,
Wait,
I'll have to bring in Albert.
Wait, I mean, Reverend,
determining
the amount of seats they want for a particular,
Reverend.
Okay, let me hear from Albert.
Parliament ratifies. So what I'm saying, NEC writes, Parliament ratifies.
Yes.
What I'm saying, Reverend, what we were going to discuss on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is to how this can be made into law.
That is
A, B, C, D, and E.
Albert, let me hear from you.
Some of the things you're saying now, requires looking at the laws, looking at our constitution. How are we going to amend our constitution as to how many members of parliament we are going to have, how many paramount chiefs? Let it be in the law.
Let me hear. I'm coming. Let me hear from Albert.
Yes, let me come in. We have conference methodology. Just like Reverend stated earlier, short term, medium term, and long term. So because of that, the focus is going to be on acts, statutory instruments. If we tend to veer into constitutional provisions, then we'll be talking about some that are entrenched, that are in the entrenched clause section, and we'll be talking about a greater engagement that will even involve referendum. So for the purpose of this discussion, in as much as he mentioned let us see how we can put them into medium term, short term. If we have to deal with the short term, there are certain issues, like the issue of seats. It is part of the entrenched clause. The issue of not below 60, it can go up. So let us be very much mindful and look at some of the low-hanging fruits. For this conference, we get them.
So that can fall under the long-term plan.
Yes, the long-term plan.
It's going to be part of the Constitution.
But we are going to discuss everything.
Right.
We're not going to leave anything not discussed. Because at the end of the day, this conference, we want to note that based upon these discussions, we have 6 clusters. If you give me the time, I'll go about them.
Go ahead.
These 6 clusters, the first one is talking about strengthening the independence and performance of electoral management bodies. We have key issues there. For example, we are talking about the capacity of the judiciary to handle electoral matters. Reverend alluded to the issue of MPs who are in parliament, timing and all of such. The capacity of the judiciary to handle legal matters. The independence and capacity of the NCRA, the Civil Registration Authority, National Civil Registration, regulating voter registration process, including the responsibilities of these institutions. That is, there is this misunderstanding or perception that NCRA and NEC, for us at NEC, we don't think that there is any misunderstanding. So you see the key issues, they are there. This is just one cluster that will be dealt with. If you move further, there are also other clusters, like the issue of building a more fair and equitable electoral rules and framework. When you go into this one, we are talking about the issue of fixed date, which is a topical issue. We are talking about the issue of the resignation, this 12 months resignation for public officers. The issue of dual nationality, even independent candidates for presidency. These are issues that are going to be up for discussion. The issue of, if you move again to another topical issue, another session, moving towards more effective mechanisms for electoral dispute resolution and conflict mitigation. We have other key issues here for discussion. That is prompt investigation of electoral offenses. You know, from experiences, we've found out that even after elections, we have a 40-day period, a 6-month period for the elections offenses court, but we still have cases that are still unattended. So these are the issues that we're going to look at, the low-hanging ones. Moving forward, the issue of prompt investigation of these matters. The establishment, the possibility of establishing electoral offenses courts.
So special
looking
courts.
at all of these ones, yes. And establishing mechanisms for conflict resolutions. And so we see we have a lot of, that is why the methodology is, we have 3 days of the 6 sessions, 2 sessions per day. And how we're going to look at it, we've invited stakeholders who are going to serve as panelists. But before the panelists take the floor, just like we are seated, we also have reputable individuals representing institutions who are going to serve as facilitators. Their role is to do research on these topics, the advantages, the disadvantages, how it will take Sierra Leone forward. After the presentation from these facilitators, then the panel will discuss these issues, the merits and demerits of it. Then after that, they will argue amongst themselves. Then we open the discussion to the general audience, so everyone can have a bite. At the end of the day, we're going to leave that conference with a communique that, based upon this, we are going to look at the short-term ones, the medium-term, the long-term, but these ones are the priorities of Sierra Leoneans that should go into any possible bill or act, as the case may be. If it is a long term, it will become a constitutional instrument. So basically, that's the methodology. Thorough engagement. And we have divergent views. We're going to have divergent views from different people.
So talking about divergent views, where are the facilitators coming from? Are they just coming from a particular sector because that sector deals with elections? So it's just going to be, experts in different fields around the issue of elections?
We've already contacted the experts. Let me take this opportunity to even inform the public, because we've had a series of engagements with them. We have 6 experts, but in 6 thematic groups, but in total we have 7 facilitators. For the issue of strengthening the independence and performance of the electoral management body, it is Dr. Mahmoud Tarawali, that is the expert who is going to do the research and bring out all of the issues before the panelists go into their engagement. For the session on building more fair and equitable electoral rules and framework, we have Mr. Andrew Lavalley. He's also done fantastic research on some of these issues. We also have, for this one, we have two. This session that deals with effective mechanisms for conflict dispute resolution and conflict management. We have two facilitators. One on the electoral disputes resolution and the other on mitigation. We have Barrister Drusil Taylor, who is going to be one of the facilitators, and Abdul Fatoma on conflict prevention. Moving forward, we have Dr. Fatou Taki, an academic who is also going to look at a session as a facilitator in creating a more equitable and inclusive electoral process. That one is going to be a very interesting engagement because if you look at the institutions that are going to serve as panelists, it is very much going to be interesting. We also have a session on regulating political parties and the electoral campaigns. We have Dr. Bernadette Lahai, who is going to serve as facilitator. Then last but not the least, the sixth session is talking about strengthening the media's role and operating environment in election. Mr. Ransford Wright is going to ensure that all of these persons, they have done fantastic job in ensuring they do research on these issues. And when they come, before the start of the engagement, they will give out the materials involved, the pluses, minuses, as the case may be, then the panelists. And when we talk about the panelists, we have panelists from different groups. For example, we're going to have two judges who are going to be part of the panel. Right. We're going to have the Solicitor General, who is going to be part of a panel. The two judges, we have Justice Alusain Sisi of the Supreme Court of Sierra Leone. We also have Justice Monfred Sisi, yes, of the Appeals Court. We're also going to have the Solicitor General in some of these panels. Moving forward, the Electoral Commission is going to be panelist. PPRC is going to be panelist. NEW is going to be panelist. Moving forward again, you have the SLCB. They are going to become part of the panel in some of these areas. So we have a wide range. The political parties, of the 17 political parties, 10 are going to be part of. There is one particular session. It is exclusively for political parties. Right. All of them, they are going to be, and from the list that we've got, these are high profile. Some are even not only participants, but they are legally minded who are going to serve in those panels to ensure that we thoroughly discuss these issues so that at the end of the day, we are able to understand that this is the road, whether it is short term, medium term, long term, as the case may be.
Just quickly, Lucien, when Albert was going through, the things that we're going to discuss, something came to mind, and that's it, the issue of campaign financing. And you have been struggling with that as an institution. Now, how would you use this opportunity to ensure that it's something you would be able to make legal, and it's something you should be able to do?
Well, as I speak, we have a consultant, and we are working in tandem with NEC, because we are doing a review, and this is an issue that has been brought forward to the Commission about campaign financing, and we've been grappling with it for a very long time. And the Commission is of the view that we should set the bar, because that has not been set in Sierra Leone, that political parties should spend A, B, C, and D during their campaigns. Right. All we've done over the years is that when you receive XYZ amounts, you report on those amounts. But what the law says is that political parties should be funded by somebody who is a Sierra Leonean and eligible to be voted as a member of parliament. Right. But that has, the bar has not been set that a political party must spend this particular amount of money during the election.
There's no ceiling.
There is no ceiling. So in our review, the review report has been sent to the Commission, and I believe this is the time that we're going to, these 3 days, we're going to decide on what political parties should spend during during their campaigns. And this is what they're going to do.
Are you also going to try as best as possible to look at how these political parties are being financed? Because Africa in particular, we were aware of what states capture is all about, and how foreign nationals, foreign institutions can actually play a role in facilitating and sponsoring a political party to come to power and capture the state.
It is against the law for a foreigner to sponsor a political party.
But that is not to say it's not been happening.
The law says a political party can be funded by a Sierra Leonean who is eligible to be voted as a member of parliament.
But there is no tracking mechanism to ascertain whether or not foreign nationals, business companies have been supporting political parties, which many political parties will say yes, they've been doing.
There is no report or a complaint. That the only complaint we had before, you know, was that there was a particular country or particular set of people financing a particular political party to build an office. But the report we got from the party was that this particular project was funded by their members, and no.
Do you undertake investigations to ascertain some of those claims?
We went further with the investigation. The late Samoa and Dixon approached the late chairman of PPRC, the Honorable Justice Patrick Hamilton, as to A, B, C, and D, and we approached the party. And the party came with their documents, and we submitted those documents to them. And there was no follow-up from them. And there was a press release by the PPRC that if you have anything contrary to what has been presented by this party, please bring it forward. And nobody brought that forward. That's our other challenge that we have. People might go to the media saying, hey, this party has been funded by A, B, C, and D, but follow up with evidence.
Okay.
And then we can take it up with those.
So as we talk about campaign financing, Albert, the session that will be moderated by Dr. Fatou Taki deals with equity and inclusive governance. And that brings to mind the issue of nomination fee, especially for women. They've been complaining a lot that it's kicking against them. So is that something that will be factored in?
Well, yes. It is a very rich session. We are talking about the issue of engendering the voter registration process and polling activities, the issue of consideration for revising nomination fees, which is there not only for women but also persons with disabilities, living with disabilities. The issue of reserved seats, you know, that is the vogue now. The issue of reserved seats. Yes. So we have a lot. And if you look at the panel, let me just go through the panel. The Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs is going to be represented. We have 2 members of parliament who have consented. That is the Parliamentary Gender Oversight Committee chair, also the Parliamentary Female Caucus chair. And moving forward, the National Commission for Persons with Disability is going to be represented in that panel. Women's Forum, they are going to be represented, and Unity Party. So you see, we have a very rich panel wherein these issues are going to be deliberated upon and discussed. And Dr. Fatou Taki's role is, one, to research, bring these issues out. Then these persons would ensure, at the end of the day, we want to ensure that legal reform should be the objective, to ensure that we review a good number of our laws that would improve political inclusion and participation.
All right, I want to move over to Reverend, but just let me ask Lucien this question. I mean, we talk about how the PPRC is responsible to register political parties and all of that, but we also have independent players in the field, especially for members of parliament. How do you go about that in terms of legislating rules, laws that deal with them?
This has been a very challenging issue with us, but we tried to go into it during the 2012 elections, where there was an issue between an independent candidate and a registered political party candidate. So what we are doing now in this review, what we want to do is that whilst we are regulating political parties, and when an independent candidate comes in, we want to also deal with them as we are dealing with registered political parties because they are contesting for the same positions. So when we are a little bit limited, you know. So, but as it deals with political parties, so we want to, you know, this 3 days conference will also address some of these issues because it's really difficult for us at NEC because NEC has the mandate to deal with independent candidates. But when there is an issue between an independent candidate and a candidate,
party,
you know, of a political party, that's another issue. And then the other issue Albert was speaking about was our looking at gender issues, you know.
Yeah.
In 2011, you know, we started with the political parties, you know, to get a gender policy, you know, to develop gender policies. But if it is in the law that a political party,
I'm sure there is now a gender policy.
No, there is a move towards.
No, there's a gender policy. There's a gender policy approved by cabinet, and now there's the bill that is being gazetted.
The gender policy. What we're saying, we want to provoke the discussion.
Right. During
these 3 days, there is a gender policy. But is there a gender policy saying political parties should? So there is the gender empowerment bill 2021 that being championed by the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs. That, I mean, we hope that when taken to Parliament this time, Parliament will actually enact it, because the last bill pioneered by Dr. Bernadette Lai was kicked out of. So what we are saying as a commission now, we are provoking this discussion Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that this should be enacted into law, that political parties should ensure, because
the 40% quota and all of that.
The issue, I know what I'm saying. The issue I'm saying is that political parties may agree on the 30% or 50% or 80% or 100%. Are they willing to do it in their where they know they will win elections?
The safe seats.
Are they willing? So, as it is in some countries like Rwanda, they know that seat A, B, C, and D is for women. Whether it's safe seat or not safe seat, it's going to be for women. These political parties are very crafty. So we want us to push them that, okay, constituency 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8, 11, these seats should be reserved for women. What are the youth going to say?
We need more.
And what are the same people going to say? So we need to push this discussion further.
Yes, Reverend.
You see, that's a very sensitive issue that Lucian is playing around with. Which constituency are you going to peg the candidate coming from that constituency to be a woman? You will be discriminating against all the men in that constituency. That is why it requires a critical examination. In Kenya, what they do, you have at district level, just like we have the paramount.
But I think that's the idea as well in Sierra Leone, where every district produces one woman to go into parliament.
So that all those who will contest for those seats should be women.
Yes.
But you go down to the constituency level, and then you say in this constituency it should be a woman. Then the level playing field that elections called for has been manipulated.
I'll only say, let us wait for the conference.
That's what's going to come out.
Yes, we're not going to take sides here.
It would be nice for AYB to cover it so that we'll see the discussion.
I think
the youth will come.
Yes, it should be part of your expenditure.
Very critical issues. And I think from the participants in this conference, definitely they will have a lot of things to think about.
Yes.
They will have to take critical decisions for posterity, because these are decisions that will not only affect the current generation, but it will continue. When we talk about this issue of safe seats, it's going to be very critical. We are not discussing actually the content on what is expected or the outcome of the decisions of the people, because we want it to come from them.
Yeah.
Whatever is agreed upon in that particular conference is what we will factor in our bill. If it is agreed in that conference that no, it will actually undermine the issue of a level playing field, that is left with them to decide. But if they say no, in as much as it may, but it is more advantageous for us to have women, people with disability, young people to occupy some of these areas so that it will form a form of inclusive process in the electoral process. That's all like whole ball game. But wait for them to see what will happen. But under this regulation for political parties, it also talks about reviewing issues of state subsidy for political parties. Because, for example, you are not giving me my resources. It will be difficult for you to actually determine how I spend my money.
But it's in the law.
It's something that is critical. So we are saying, according to the recommendations, how government can actually provide, subsidize the functions of political parties so that they will not die, or they will be able to participate.
Or that will spur more political parties.
For more political because in one of your press you realize that after the 2018 election, for every by-election, the number of political parties contesting keep reducing.
Yes,
it keeps reducing.
There's a reason for that.
And what's the reason?
There are reasons.
That is because NEC, when it came to setting the candidature fee, they said it has they have the mandate.
So that is what is included
Can
here.
I please, Mr. Congo, please? Can I?
Go ahead.
You see, these are the reasons why this conference is important.
Yes.
Because of the conflicts in the various electoral legal instruments. You will see interpretations being made as it favors. In 2012, they said, NEC said they were on the radio, the TV, everywhere, shouting, you have to be ordinarily resident. You have to be ordinarily resident. And then voters started coming from Liberia. They wanted to register in Pujehun district. And Pujehun district organized themselves and said, no, you cannot register here. If you come to, go to where you came from initially, because you have to be ordinarily resident. And then NEC went around again and said, no, well, the constitution says as long as the person avails themselves. If you go back to our report for 2012, you will see that there are clearly a recommendation accompanying it. They now said, the constitution says, as long as the person avails themselves, and then that person must be registered. And then the issue of the candidature fee came in. And Parliament said, please.
Let him land, let him land.
And Parliament said, we have the authority
to determine that.
To determine. And NEC said, no, it is us who recommend. How can you compromise those issues? In one instance, you want to play along with the Public Elections Act. And in another instance, you want to play along with what the Constitution is saying. So these are the discrepancies that must be put straight. So that when we say this is the issue, we all understand it to be the issue. So that we cannot go and then you change the rules in the middle of game of the game. These are where the inconsistencies come in, and they are a recipe for chaos in our electoral processes.
Okay, you can respond to that quickly.
Some of these issues.
Please do.
I don't think the Commission has ever been inconsistent in terms of the issue making. When we talk about ordinary residents, it's enshrined in the Public Elections Act. It's very, very clear about being ordinary resident. The interpretation of ordinary residents in the Public Elections Act is very, very clear. It does not mean I have to stay there permanently, but it may be a place where I usually go and come back. You understand? So that particular area is very, very clear. For the nomination fee, we recommend, we send to Parliament it states that if nobody raises objection against it after 21 days, it becomes a law. And that's the normal procedure.
Let me just
I'm coming, please.
Let me just interject.
I'm just coming.
In 2000 and before the 2012 elections, when we have Justice Tola Thompson, the issue was the NEC has suggested A, B, C, and D. Your responsibility as political parties is to lobby Parliament to reduce the fees. So this brings the discussion on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for political parties to come together and lobby Parliament for the reduction of the fees. It is
stated here in this particular, for this particular session, regulating political parties and the electoral campaign, reviewing the issue of nomination fee. It's there. So I want to believe during this conference it will be addressed appropriately.
Okay.
We'll talk about amending the legal requirement for the registration of political parties, because a lot of people are also creating a lot of information regarding how the criteria for the registration of political parties. So they want to see how that can be reviewed, either to restrict or to become more inclusive for other political parties to actually register. Then we talk about the code of conduct of political parties, the code of conduct for elections. These are all areas that will be discussed during this particular session under the theme regulating political parties and electoral campaign. And when you talk about even for creating a more suitable and inclusive electoral process, mind you, it is not only talk about the inclusion of women. You have to take into consideration people with disability. You have to take into consideration the youth. You have to take into consideration others in the diaspora, Sierra Leoneans. How can they participate in our electoral process?
Okay.
These are all critical issues that will be discussed, and the issue needs to be arrived at during this particular conference. So you realize that we, in this particular discussion, it is just for us to inform.
Is it to seem going to form part of this conversation?
It is. That is what we are saying.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's one of the areas. This to seem issue. We want to trash it.
We have a very big bundle of recommendations.
So you realize for this particular conference that it is not only centered around activities only related to NEC or PPRC. It will require some other institutions to review their laws. But for it to be comprehensive, it is during this particular conference, those that are concerned will know that the duty bearers, this particular institution has to do this. This institution will do this.
All right, we quickly have to bring in our viewers and our listeners. We're running out of time. Yes, Reverend, just in a minute.
Yeah, Mr. Wise, you know, this is no time for fine speeches. The 2018 elections experience for the public was a big confusion when it came to interpreting the Constitution and the legal instruments. We were mostly disadvantaged as election observers.
How?
Because we are not experts in these fields. And when we fall back to these organizations that we think are experts, they are divided. They are all making their interpretations from the kind of lens they are wearing. That is why these things, these discussions that we are going to have must be very simple, must be straightforward, must be clear, so that as a layman, I understand it as it is laid. So that I don't want to require to go to somebody to tell me that because of shall or will or this is what this is what it is. Right. I am very, very serious. This country was almost thrown into chaos because a single judge slammed an injunction on the activities of NEC just at the doorstep of the runoff elections. And we're all aware of the tension that arose from that decision of the single judge.
Okay.
NEC is yet to tell us how far the court has responded to the matter that they took to the Supreme Court in relation of whether that judge had the jurisdiction of that matter.
Okay.
Let me
hold you there. I would have to bring in note that down, please. We have to bring in our viewers and our listeners. We've gotten a lot of messages already online, and we can only accommodate few calls, and the number to do so is 030 622-766, 030-622-766, plus 232-30-622-766. You can call and be part of the conversation. Kyle Kamara is saying, all term saloon man delates. Bad culture, late coming. Okay, that's for Reverend. But Reverend was given a wrong time. I know. Reverend was given a wrong time. And Reverend has never come here late when we invite him. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Samuel. This is Abdullah from Dwazak.
Go ahead, Abdullah.
Yeah, going forward, I wanted to consider for ban this street campaign business, we can hamburg people and businesses and other people. All kind of people in the campaign in the with bad intention then, Let them make advanced countries then, town hall meetings, stadium, all man commodities, say idea, then we'll move on to life.
Okay.
But the street campaign, don't they disturb business then totally.
Okay. Thank you.
Second,
quickly.
Then this street business for say constituency for produce woman, that they not make sense. Let them recommend each and every political party for decide for put at least also percentage of woman. In go decide now which district get woman we go and put it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, AYV on Sunday.
Yes, good evening, Samurai. How are you?
I'm doing great. Your name and where are you calling us from?
Yeah, this is General Fula calling from Kosoto. I have a few questions to ask.
Go ahead.
With regards to this 3 days conference, and considering the theme, 6 clusters, will this 3 days conference be enough to address those issues considering our Sierra Leonean reading culture and research mentality? Will those 3 days be enough to do all this critical analysis in just 3 days? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Abdul Karim is saying, Abdul Karim Komwa by Samura, we need a fixed date for the conduct of elections in Sierra Leone. Alhaji Ibrahim Surkama is saying, Imona, you go police. If me, una say, una day over, okay, that's not too clear. And we wish, interesting. People are talking about who is going to, who is not going to. That's not what we're discussing. So I'm going to be skipping those messages, please. Honestly, some of us have no doubt towards the review of the election reforms in the country, and the 2024 general elections will be free from violence and it will be credible, transparent, and fair. Amara Alpha is saying the conversation around forthcoming election is of immense importance. I think the youth must be well sensitized not to involve in any form of violence during elections. We've all seen that it's not worth fighting for any politician. The earlier the youth remove the scale from their eyes to prevent being hoodwinked by the politicians, the better for them. Samuel Kroma is saying. Patrick Wu is saying the president and parliament won in 2019. In 2018, you want to say, so election is 2024. Okay, thank you. For I think you are the dates. You are the proposed review should be in accordance with the time frame. The incumbent should not be borrowed stated time of the polls. What we know, the election should be on April 2023. Bank Saidu is saying change Political Party Registration Commission (PPRs) to Political Party Registration and Regulations Commission. Samuel Solomon Williams is saying the incumbent is so jittery to the okay. Ona Georgeson is saying, here we go again, an election is next door and the same old saga of how or what should be done. Can't these institutions have best standard practice of making sure that we don't repeat the obstacles over and over? When you have institutions that have the same issues time and time again, spells problems at the very end. Imagine as president of a nation saying in, okay, that's not what we're discussing. I will skip that. The government is okay. Politics, we're discussing politics. So, APC, okay, that's not what we're discussing. I hope and wish PPRC and NEC will ban street campaign that had been terrorizing innocent people and their businesses, houses. Going forward, I recommend town hall meetings, stadiums, etc. for politicians to share all their views, because if you consider how many people depend on politics in almost everything, you will know how prepared they are for the next election. Cherno Ebari is saying the number is 030-622-766. This okay, we skip this. The laws are implemented to suit the current establishment, okay? All the panelists are just there to muscle opposition. Interesting. Parliament needs to have a debate on fixed dates on our local and general elections to avoid all these arguments. KB Conte is saying. APC Tolombo, okay, that's not it, guys. Honestly, the matter is worth listening to. Thanks to Samuel and the AYV and Sunday team. What interesting topic. Arun Azizuri, thank you. The electoral process in Sierra Leone indeed needs a thorough review because the two main parties have the financial packages required as opposed to the minority parties, which puts them in a disadvantaged position. There are no equity, which might give all parties a fair chance to, unless there is some pluralism amongst all parties. Some opposition parties will cry foul. The grant is saying politicians have taken politics as a shortcut to amass wealth at the expense of citizens. The introduction of the word should in our laws sometimes left me baffled. May I ask why aren't there, okay, the only way to ensure the 30% quota for women and people with disabilities is to adopt the proportional representation system. The present first past the post system will not ensure this. Political parties would only give symbols to these groups in areas where they know that they would lose. Abu Conte is saying, my host country, my constituency can only be represented by female in parliament. Partiku is saying so many messages. I think we'd have to take at most 2 more. Time will not permit us to go, depending if too many political messages do not. It's never a responsibility of government to sponsor political parties. Jesus E. Bobo is saying the law demanded that political parties should have offices in all district headquarters. How many meet these criteria? None, but they all want to be president. When are we going to debate who have the biggest farm in Sierra Leone? Okay, I think I have to hold the messages there. Time is not in our favor. Let me allow my panelists to respond to them. I'll start off with you, Albert.
Yes, somebody asked whether 3 days will be enough.
Yes.
In the first place, this conference we are holding is a culmination of so many other engagements that we've done in the last 2 years.
Right.
We did regional engagement on these topics. So if we are doing it now, that just tells you. And the reason for the 3 days, that's why we have put them into 6 sessions, 2 sessions per day. So we are going to have the morning session for the morning for one session, the afternoon for the other session.
A day.
We want to ensure that we do justice. Usually it is 1 day for a program, but if we have put it for 3 days, we want to, as much as possible. That is the essence of having the facilitators do thorough research on the issues and bring it, so that the panelists will just feed on this research as they are. Basically, that's the essence. Then the audience will come in. We want to guide the discussion. It is not for somebody to just come and just say what he or she wants to say, but to be guided by the researcher. And apart from the researcher, there's going to be the chief facilitator. By the way, the chief facilitator is Valnora Edwin, who is going to ensure that she is in charge of the facilitators. The facilitators also are going to be in charge of the panelists. Then we'll ensure that people come with valuable issues, not to just come and say what you may want to say, but valuable ones that move forward. Now, the issue of what we've done, this legal reform, to be very sincere, this is the first time that we are taking elections observation mission recommendations very seriously. In 2007 elections, during the 2007 elections, we had recommendations. But again, come 2012 elections, observer missions came, they saw the same. 2018, when observer missions came again, they saw virtually the same thing. But moving forward, and I'm sure if we're able to get this right, when observer missions, including new, when they will be observing the 2023 election, this is a departure. Not to say, well, observer missions they are not going to come again as on tourism, but they will come and see marked improvement because specifically we are looking at, this is the first time we are looking at 103 recommendations. We have put them into various clusters and we are deliberating on these clusters, ensuring that duty bearers take charge of these ones and move the process forward. So this is, well, not like as usual, but we want to ensure by the next cycle of 2023, all of these recommendations, it may not be all. I want to still go with Reverend, but the short term, the medium term, the ones for long term, at least on a scale of 100, if we're able to do 75, 80% of these recommendations, then that's well and good.
Can I just, hypothetically speaking, we're still with, of course, this is the fact, we're still with the ongoing census saga. Where there is the cartographic mapping being completed and all of that and things like that.
Externalities.
It must come. I mean, these are things that you should prepare for, if at all. I mean, they are part of the externalities you presented the last time. So what if at all we have to go, and everyone was talking about plus or minus 25% that you have to determine and all of that, and also talking about Parliament writing and informing, telling them how many seats they want to, have per session and per Parliament. With all of those, if that kicks in amidst this process, what's?
Well, I'll just cue from the NEC strategic plan document, which clearly states these externalities. In as much as we are doing all of these activities, but we have some key externalities, that is the actions or inactions of some other state institutions, like Statistics Sierra Leone, SSL, Stats SL.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, but again, we have to look at the legal provisions.
Yeah.
We already have laws in Sierra Leone, like for example, if we want to do boundaries delimitation, constituency and ward boundaries, it falls within a period of between 5 and 7 years. 5 is the lower limit, 7 years. And looking at it, the lowest, the earliest moment we can have any is in between 2022 and 2024. That is the 5th and 7th year period.
Yeah.
But again, the externality comes in. But I'm sure this issue of the 25% that Reverend raised on boundaries is going to be a very important. Let me just inform you that when we have been engaging with the political parties, they've already started, some political parties even are interested in certain groups, certain sessions that are interested in these areas. We want to go and discuss. For example, this is one area, the issue of the independence of the electoral management bodies, the issue of seat allocation and nomination fees. These are the key areas where in political parties, they really want to go and make their views known that this is what they feel. The rest assured, based upon the engagements, would go there. But again, as I say, there are still externalities. We cannot determine them until the outcome of the census data, the results, would have to inform so many other players, not necessarily NEC. Yes.
Okay. Lucien?
Well, I'm a one reporting on one particular issue, and that has to deal with funding of political parties. I think during the 3 days, I think we need to really look at that particular issue. I may not want to say as an individual is against funding of political parties or for funding against political parties, but I may want to just open the discussion. What would be the advantage of a political party be funded by government, and what would be the disadvantage of a political party be funded by the government? It being funded by the government, will that be used by the government, to muzzle them or to help them? Taking into consideration the Goodluck Jonathan money. Yeah. I may not want to go further. That's for them to discuss during the 3 days. You may want to be funded by the government. And I don't think there is any part in this world that political parties are being funded by government. Presently, I don't think. So, if a political party or political parties are going to be funded by the government, is it going to be on your advantage or your disadvantage? I believe when the late chairman, Justice Tola Thompson, was around, there was this discussion and parameters were set for how political parties should be funded. And the discussion ended. So let's take this discussion further on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Let's think about it. If you allow the government of the day to fund you, is it in your advantage or in your disadvantage? Mind you, I may not want to say what I want to say again, because you can be funded for the good reason or for the wrong reason. Because if you are funded, are you prepared? Are you prepared to report on what is given to you?
The issue of accountability.
Or are you prepared?
How is that even?
Are you prepared to be muzzled?
How is that even going now that government is not funding those parties with regards giving, I mean, giving account of their expenses?
Let's leave that discussion for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm just playing the devil's advocate, and I've been always playing that devil's advocate since 2012. Do you want to be funded by government? What are the advantages and the disadvantages? Let's look at it.
Okay.
That is where I stop.
All right. Let me.
As Lucy and Momo, not as prepared.
Philip.
I think this particular conference will address a lot of issues, in as much as Reverend rightly said that we should not be over-ambitious. But I want to believe you must have the thought, the zeal, before you can actually achieve either all of your objective or part of your objective. Without that particular thought and initiative, it will be very, very difficult. I know we are starting the ball rolling. Most of these issues, I want to believe, that are not related to entrenched clauses in the Constitution, I want to believe, could easily be addressed. Those that relate to entrenched clauses automatically could be the long-term process, because that will require a referendum. And I don't see within now and 2023 for us to conduct the local council elections, referendum, presidential and parliamentary election within this particular period, considering the funds that will be required, the logistical arrangement, operational activities, all of that. That will be very, very difficult. Then I want to believe with some of this review, as somebody was saying, will this actually help us to establish best practices or practice? I'm sure we are achieving that particular objective, because no matter what happens, when Reverend will be going out in 2023, some of the recommendations that they have made automatically will have been addressed. And definitely that will be a plus, not only to NEC, PPRC or the other sectors, but to be a plus for this country, that indeed Sierra Leone is an area we can go and copy best practices. And I want to assure you that in as much as we are not praising NEC, but I'm telling you, in terms of standard, definitely you take any country, you find it difficult to compete with us, considering the current standard we have actually set for the Commission. Then you talk about the electoral system. That's another critical issue, that we go back to the PR system. We have practiced the PR system before now. We have practiced the district block system before now, and we changed it. And that came out as a result of what? Recommendation from citizens of this nation. That's why we are practicing now the first past the post system. But I want to believe during this deliberation and the conference, all of these will be addressed. And in terms of the interpretation of laws, Reverend, is a critical area, because when you look at statutory interpretation, we have 4 different ways of interpreting laws. So it depends on who is the presiding judge. What lens is that particular person actually looking at it? You, from the layman point of view, you may look at the literary point. Others may be looking at the golden rule. Others may be looking at the mischief rule. Whilst in other jurisdictions, they will be looking at the purposive rule. So you understand that you cannot hoist the jurisdiction of the court or tell them categorically that this is the lens you should look at this particular law. So it's a critical game. If you are saying that, automatically you are removing the powers of the judiciary from them, and we don't have that particular authority. So we have to be very, very careful and ensure that we don't fall into the trap of the judiciary.
Reverend?
Thank you very much, Samuel. Firstly, I want to appreciate the leadership of the National Electoral Commission for taking leadership in this process. Like Albert said, discussions around these recommendations had started way back 2 years or so. A task force was formed. The recommendations were categorized in 6 thematic areas, and committees set to handle those thematic areas. Come out with workable action plans. All that was done. And then, as usual, silence. Nothing was moving again. Nothing was happening. So as National Election Watch, noting that the elections here were fast approaching, we went and challenged NEC on what is happening about these recommendations. Because it's a disgrace. When you go back to 2007, the same recommendations, 2012, same recommendations, 2018, same recommendations. Are we going to have same recommendations? We, as citizen observers, we are concerned. So we went back to NEC and challenged them on the issue. I am happy they have taken the challenge, and within this short period, they have worked, impressively towards ensuring that something happens. We have also gone further to go to all those institutions that recommendations were targeted at and challenge them like we did with NEC.
What are some of those institutions?
Like the Office of the Chief Justice, like the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Office of National Security, Political Parties Registration Commission, all political parties, IMC, Law Reform Commission, the Sierra Leone Police. We have visited them all and will be publishing our findings after we would have brought them to a roundtable discussion on those findings. We are happy that progress is being made. We must be seen to be a decent society. We must move away from allowing things to happen in that haphazard manner, and then whoever is on the seat determines how things should happen. We must move away from those things.
What do you hope to be achieved at the end of this 3-day conference?
My hope is that there will be the political will, so that the discussions that we are going to do may not be a waste of energy, a waste of effort, a waste of resources. Because I am saying this when I reflect on work that was done on the constitutional review, where so much time and energy and resources was spent, judicious work done, and a report with recommendations submitted. And that document was made mockery of by the kind of white paper that came out. And even when the current government, during their campaigns, we are very strong on when assuming power, that will be one of their first assignments, to go back to that document, to make sure that they look at it again, and then come out with a white paper that resonates with recommendations of that document. We still don't know what is happening. We have had a meeting with the Attorney General and Minister of Justice on the issue. He has told us a task force has been set on that, and that progress has been made. we are not seeing the progress. The public is not aware of what is happening. And so it's a big disappointment that state resources are utilized to ensure that this country is put on a decent tracking, and then mockery is made of it at the end of the day.
Can I quickly, Albert, I know you're preparing for the 2022 local council elections. And where are you, as an institution? I'm asking this question because Reverend just talked about something very critical. There is this new policy, is it the local government or decentralization policy that speaks to depoliticizing, taking away partisan politics from local council elections, and that policy is there. So is this something that's going to form part again of the conversation? As you prepare for 2022?
Well, this conversation is actually from the Electoral Observation Mission's recommendation.
Right.
The issue you have brought up, actually, the Commission has mentioned it in its strategic plan as one of the externalities.
Right.
Just like we made mention of Stats SL, also this issue of the possibility of pushing or extending by 1 year local council. It is part of our externalities.
Okay.
But again, to just go over in making sure that what will be the outcome, it is expected for this conference to look at the roadmap. Because at the end of the day, NEC, the Electoral Commission, we are actually pushing for the review of the Public Elections Act. So also PPRC. So we want to ensure that the discussions of this conference would form strong basis for that review. So it's not going to be something that nothing will happen. That's one I'm pretty sure, because that's what we are pushing for. And we want to ensure, and that's the reason why I said, let us go for the low-hanging fruits. These are statutory instruments that can easily be addressed, especially when amongst us. And the good thing is, like some of the recommendations, IMC, they are far gone ahead as an institution. The repeal of because these are all part of the recommendations, the Public Order Act and all of such. Then even the issue of the gender. You see the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs and this other set of stakeholders also pushing. So we see everybody's moving towards that. As a nation, we have a national will. We only hope we can have the political will. And the political will is not only with the executive, Parliament has to do a lot with regards to the political will, because all of these are just recommendations. These are reviews. They become bills. They go to Parliament. It is what it is done with these recommendations in Parliament will make these ones become real legal instruments. But the rest assured, our focus is for us, the planners of this conference, to have a way forward, next steps, a blueprint that we'll use to ensure that PPRC's bill, the Electoral Commission's bill, all these other bills go to Parliament and they are given the go-ahead.
Smooth sail. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the conversation. And this is all we have time for in tonight's program. A repeat of this program comes up on Thursday, 4 p.m. In case you missed this edition, fresh edition comes up next week, same station, same time. Remember, this is your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news. The show has been AYV on Sunday. My name is Samuel Weisbanger, and up next is our AYV Primetime News. Thank you for watching and listening.